I thought competency was the thing that was going to move me up the chain.
So many do.
So I wanted to be a great communicator. I wanted to be a great leader. I wanted to build this great youth ministry. What I realized is the enemy could care less how competent I am. What he wants to do is attack my character.
Yeah.
Because if he can make my character stumble, nobody cares how competent I am. Welcome back to the Good Life Podcast, where we talk about the search for significance, the pursuit of purpose, and the challenges of our culture. I'm Carl Nichols, and today I'm here with Pastor Daniel Foster, and we are talking about this journey toward the good life. So much of what we talk about in this goes back to Genesis chapter number 3, where God creates everything, creates man in his own image, and he says he saw that it was very good, and then sin enters the world, and we've been chasing that paradise ever since. And so we're just giving some practical advice on families and parenting, and today we're going to be talking about specifically young adults, high school, and then graduate age, because we're in that season.
Yeah.
And I know parents, this will be good for you, but also young adults, this will be good for you. So I've asked Pastor Daniel to lead us in this discussion today. I think one of the reasons I want to talk about this is so many of we've noticed over the last few years that kids coming from middle school to high school, that transition's been hard.
Yeah.
We can keep talking about the pandemic and all that. I hate bringing that up, but the reality is there's some fallout from that. Mm-hmm. Then from high school to college is another transition. We're seeing young adults in our church really connect and study the Bible together and grow. We have a great, Jocelyn's put together an incredible team, and as well just kind of a small group that happens on Sunday mornings. And so I'm excited about that. But then as they phase out of college, then what's next, especially for those single people who are young adults and under 25-ish, 28. So we're going to talk about that, and I think the things you're going to talk about today specifically help us understand in all phases of life, how do we move toward this life of significance, because that's what we're talking about. We have survival, we have success, and we have significance. We talked about in our first conversation around this family conversation we've been having for a couple weeks now. So many people are in survival. Some are looking at success, but we're talking about living a life of significance that impacts others and leaves a legacy, and really is centered around the things of God. So I ask you to give us some feedback and some advice, and however you want to take it from here, man. I'll just kind of jump in wherever. I talked a lot in the last episode. So talk to us, to students, especially high school age, graduates, and then maybe even up to maybe college and young adults.
Yeah, for sure. So I have 5 thoughts I want to just kind of share today, and I want your feedback, so feel free to cut in whenever. But this first thought, I think I actually heard from you a couple years back, but it was this: competency gets you in the room, but character keeps you there. And I think that is so important for high school students to middle school students kind of understand, become aware of, high school students to begin to practice and take into the next stages of life when you go into college. I mean, you'll have a lot of opportunities. You'll have opportunities to play on certain teams. You'll have opportunities to have certain jobs or to be a part of certain clubs. And your competency, having the ability to be there, the skill set needed for that, will get you a spot on the roster. But it's your character that will eventually keep you there. You may have a great opportunity at a new job, but if you don't have good character, if you're stealing company time, if you don't have punctuality, your character is going to not having that character is going to keep you from staying in that place.
So let's talk about that for a second, because if there's a 17-year-old listening or a 20-year-old listening or a graduate in the season, they're probably working more on their competency right now for most of you than you are your character.
Yeah.
This is why you go to college. You're working on competency. This is why you get an education. You're working on competency. This is why you get a job. You're being competent. You're adding to your tool belt. But character, what are some things that when you talk about character, I'm just going to throw some, we'll spit back and forth here, but what are some things that 18-year-olds, 20-year-olds, 22-year-olds can do to develop their character now? Just some examples. There's no foolproof checklist of things, but just some ideas.
Yeah, we can go back to just the list of values you have for your home. That'd be a great starting point for your character. Honest always.
Yeah.
Learn to obey those who have an authority, who have authority over you. Learn to obey those. I said what? Honest always, obey, respect other people, respect other people's property. Just have some respect for others. And then remind me what your last one is. It's been a few
I
weeks.
think it was we did obey the first time.
Obey, yeah.
Self-control.
Have self-control.
Yeah.
I mean, if we can start with those 4, I think it would be life-changing to so many of our young adults and students.
I think listen, I've been in roles in ministry early in life. I was 21 years old when I got married. Graduated high school. Graduated college at 21.
Took
got
the
married.
long route.
Yeah. And started in ministry at a full-time job in Nashville, Tennessee on a church staff. I thought competency was the thing that was going to move me up the chain.
So many do.
So I wanted to be a great communicator. I wanted to be a great leader. I wanted to build this great youth ministry. What I realized is the enemy could care less how competent I am. What he wants to do is attack my character.
Yeah.
Because if he can make my character stumble, nobody cares how competent I am.
Yeah.
Nobody, especially in the world of ministry and in the Christian world, to honor God. You might can get away with stealing company time. You might can get away with, barely getting by, but you're not going to be significant. You're not going to have a life of significance if you're just barely doing those things. And so
I think about very competent pastors who a lot of people may have looked up to, and you see them moral fallout because they had the competency to get them there, but they didn't have the character that kept them there.
Yeah, and I think it's important to recognize your character flaws. So for me, and you're going to talk about some of this, I think, in some ways, some of the habits you talk about. But you have to know yourself. You have to know what boundaries you need around yourself. The fact that you need boundaries and you need accountability does not make you a bad person. It makes you human.
Yeah.
And so some people struggle. I'll give an extreme example that everybody could kind of go with. If I struggle with alcohol, I need people keeping me out of the bars, right?
Yes.
Okay. Does that make me a bad person or does that make me smart?
Smart. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't need to if I struggle with alcohol, I don't need people keeping alcohol in the house. I'll dumb it way down. I used an example a few weeks ago. If I struggle eating sweets, let's try to keep the sweets amount. Now I got kids. That's hard. You understand what I mean? Let's put things in place that protect our character. Part of character is not being perfect. It's recognize your flaws and keeping boundaries around you from stumbling.
Yeah, and you got to be vulnerable in that, and you need to reach out to your 2 or 3 closest friends or family and say, hey, this is an area in which I really struggle with. Can you help me?
Yeah. And boundaries have blessings. I talk about all this all the time. I had a dog one time who got out of the neighborhood and we couldn't find her. It was before we had kids, so it was like our kid. And Julie kind of lost her mind, worried about the dog. But the reality is she got outside the boundary, so she was in danger. And I tell people all the time, if I tell my kids to stay right, let's say there's oncoming traffic, and I tell my kids, okay, I need you to stay 10 feet away from that oncoming traffic. Because if you trip and fall, you're not falling out in the middle of the interstate.
Right.
And so boundaries have blessings. They protect you along the way. And I think that's a huge component of character because the enemy is very, very real. So, cool.
Absolutely. The next one is be intentional with the habits you create. I spoke to our students about this a few weeks ago. Today I'm speaking to the local baseball team, and we're going to talk about this exact same thing. But the question I want to ask is, do the habits you have today support the life you hope to have in 5 years? We all have goals. You think specifically, you think relationally. You have goals in 5 years. Maybe you want to be married. Maybe you want to be in a relationship. Financially, maybe in 5 years you want to have a good job. You want to be an entrepreneur and start your own business. You have those financial goals. Maybe spiritually. In 5 years, when I have a family, I want us to be going to church. I want to have a close relationship with Christ. I want to be strong in my faith in 5 years. And physically, maybe in 5 years, I want to be in good shape. I want to be fit. I want to be healthy. And so we all have goals. We all have this vision of what we want life to look like 5 years from now. But do the habits you have today support the life you hope to have?
That is so good. And I think about not only, I would also add to that, why do you have the habits? So you said something that's funny to me because everybody in college gets fit because they want to get married. And then they get married
after
and they
the
get fat,
freshman 15.
Right? They go from fit to fat. One letter changed. And so what I think it's like, why am I doing what's the core behind it? And so if we're talking about a life of significance for God and for the kingdom and for making a difference in others, it gives it a different why than I just want to have good relationships and I want to have good money and I want to be, you see what I'm saying? And so the spiritual foundation is a huge component of that. I think I actually have never heard anybody say it that way. Like, do the habits today support the life you want in 5 years? Man, I think I'm 44 years old and I'm thinking, okay, in 15 years when my kids are out of the house and it's just Julie and I, do the habits that I have today support that season of life? Yeah. That is a valuable, I think, lesson for all of us in whatever season of life we're in.
Yeah, I mean, you think that, and let's go financially. In 5 years, I want to own my own business. That's my goal.
But I eat out every day.
Exactly. What are your spending habits right now?
Yeah.
What are your saving habits?
What iPhone you're not going to... Because, I mean, you can upgrade to a 14, or you can still stay with your 10 and stay, have
Yeah,
better money.
absolutely. And it's you're not going to wake up one morning and be like, voila, I've made it. Mm-hmm. I mean, like you referenced a few podcasts ago, that a few episodes ago, that there are times you get breaks for sure, but for the vast majority of us, you're not going to wake up one morning and boom, your goal's been reached.
Yeah.
You've got to take steps to get there, and those steps start with habits. And so
okay. So let's talk about habits for a minute, and then we'll move on. Habits also create patterns. Mm-hmm. And then when a situation comes up and you've made a pattern of doing certain things, you have an auto response. So that, when I think about when I was 21 years old, got married, 2 years old, bought my first house, 23 years old, sold that same house, didn't know what I was doing financially, and sold my first house, and I had to bring $2,500 to the table to close the house. And I was mad because I'd gotten duped by the fact that they kept building in my neighborhood. They told us they weren't, blah, blah, blah. I said, I'm going to learn real estate. Mm-hmm. So I remember in that season of life, learning real estate and making decisions, and now and practicing those things. Now when I have an opportunity on real estate, like I can make a decision in a moment. Mm-hmm. Like people are processing, I'm first to strike.
Yeah.
And have made more money and been more successful in real estate than anybody I personally know. Mm-hmm. Especially with the time and energy that I put into it. It's just a secondary hobby. But that's a primary source of income for me, not ministry. Mm-hmm. Real estate's my primary source of income long term. And so at the end of the day, I make decisions now because I created habits that created patterns, processing, learning. And I think the same thing is true in marriage. How do I respond to my wife? How do I spend money? How do I, when the going gets tough, and I get busy, am I in my devotional life? Am I studying? Am I growing? All those things apply. So
exactly.
Really
and when I was 18, I knew I was called into ministry. I wanted to be into student ministry specifically. And so I wasn't a youth pastor then, but I had to get, and I've shared this in episodes in the past where I was given opportunities, but those opportunities, I had habits. I developed habits, study habits, time in my Bible, and daily prayer habits. And those things built and helped to get me to the place I wanted to be, and ultimately in 5 years. And so this is one little kind of bottom line I told my students is, what you give energy to grows.
Yeah, no doubt.
So, it's you reap what you sow. So what are you giving your energy to? What kind of habits do you have? You have those goals in 5 years, so what are you giving your energy to?
I think too on that, when I think about can your daily routines sustain in 5 years? So if you say, well, yeah, I create habits, I'm working out, I'm exercising, I'm doing this, but you're not working hard.
Yeah.
You got it back. You can't work out 6 hours a day and work 2 hours a day. Like find the rhythms of life, the habits that are sustainable as well, that also propel you toward that. That's really
absolutely
good. Cool.
So the third thought I have is this: the world will compete for your heart. Know what you believe and why you believe it.
That's so good. So I actually put a note in here when I saw what you were going to say, because I just watched a video, a recap this past week, and it was talking about your kids will go to college. Mm-hmm. And then they'll start asking things about the Old Testament. And, so do you believe, in this? And do you believe in that? And then they'll be confused about, well, what? And he said this, like, okay. Then they'll go, maybe my faith is like, maybe I don't even know what I believe. Maybe God's not real. Maybe whatever. Yeah. So there's a lot of things we don't know. And I wrote in the notes, everything hinges on one event in history, and that's the resurrection. Mm-hmm. And if you believe in the resurrection, everything else can kind of make sense, because he made sense of it in that moment. And but I don't think this is why you have to wrestle what you believe to the ground. Yeah. And so what are you seeing with students? Do you see them walk away in these seasons?
Yeah, I see. Well, because information is so readily available to us right now, students spend an ungodly amount of time on social media, TikTok specifically. You'll watch a video, and if you don't know what you believe and why you believe it, you'll watch a video, a 60-second video, and you're like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
That kind of sounds good.
Yeah.
That makes sense. And then because you watched a 60-second video that kind of made you feel good, you're like, well, that kind of goes against what I was always raised, but this kind of makes more sense. So maybe I'm going to subscribe to this thought process. I want to subscribe to this theology. This makes a whole lot more sense now. And so everything that, if you don't have that strong foundation, you don't know what you believe and why you believe it, then while the world's competing with all these thoughts and ideologies, you're like, well, I'm just going to gravitate towards what feels good.
Well, yeah, and so I think this is important. This is why we talked about parents first, because maybe you didn't grow up in a home where your parents did those things that we talked about in the previous episodes, and you're trying to figure it out on your own. Here's the dilemma. There is a world that's trying to disciple you. Colleges and universities are trying to disciple you. even the public education system in America, for the most part, a broad stroke here, is discipling our kids in a way that is not biblical. The fact that we're even entertaining conversations around transgender and human sexuality and the various things is just asinine. It's the dumbest thing. It makes it's our foolish hearts have been darkened, and we've given ourselves over to a depraved mind. The enemy's allowed us to be over to a depraved mind. The question is, are you going to allow that to disciple you? Or are you going to look for something that's so much greater? And so I think this is so important. Most people don't. They know some of the stories of the Bible, but we look at the Bible sometimes, I think, in a critical sense of trying to disprove it versus asking, what is God trying to tell me about myself? And how we look at the scriptures is so important.
Absolutely. It's very me-centered. If we're not careful. This is me, and it's built to be Jesus-centered. Yeah. And so, very, very good. The next thought is this: your plans, your dreams change, but God doesn't. You ever have plans change? When you were in high school, what was your dream?
Oh man, you asked. I remember when I was a kid, I had two dreams. I wanted to be a ninja.
A ninja?
I don't even know what that means now, but as a kid, I just wanted to do backflips and kick stuff. I thought that was cool. That is cool. I never have been able to do a backflip. And there was one season, and I'm not dogging anybody that does this because I really appreciate it.
Well, I think I remember this.
But I did. I wanted to be a trash man, and there's nothing wrong with being a trash man. I just wanted to be a trash man so I could ride on the back of the truck. I just wanted to hang off the back of the truck.
I said this several episodes ago, and I'm going to say it again. If we have anybody listening that is in waste management, please, would you give Carl a ride on the back of your truck?
I don't know that their insurance would cover it, but we'd try. Even if we just did around the parking lot.
That would be, please, I would love to see that.
I just thought it was the coolest thing the first time I ever saw a dude just hanging off the back of the truck. I was like 6.
That's what I want to do forever.
That's what I want to do. I just want to hang on. And I'm thinking, after about 3 days, it's probably not fun anymore,
Yeah.
But anyway.
So in high school, what did you want to do? Like, what was your kind of
I wanted to play professional sports, and thought I had an avenue for baseball and had several injuries. I joked about this a few weeks ago. Everybody seems to have the same story. They think they're better than they were, and I'm kind of at 44 years old. I don't know if I was good or not, but that's what I wanted to do. And I had a lot of opportunities before me, and that was my desire. But the injury, and then I remember at 17 years old when I dove for a ball in between my junior and senior year. After having an incredible junior year, I had a slap lesion in my left shoulder, tore my labrum front and back. Have 2 steel pins in my left shoulder, and I got up off the ground. I couldn't pick my arm up. The crazy part is, this is wild. I looked at our second baseman at the time. I was like, I'm about to die for this one. I just said it. It was prophetic in a weird way. And I dove right up the middle, knocked the ball down, but then I couldn't pick up my arm.
Oh God! And
I stood up and I just started crying. Not because of the pain, it hurt. But in that moment, I felt the Holy Spirit tell me, I've been trying to get your attention.
Wow.
And that definitely changed.
So you had plans. You worked hard up until that point. You wanted to go professionally.
Yep.
And
some of the guys I played with did. Yeah.
And that changed. Similar to that, not necessarily an injury, but in high school, I wanted to be in the military. I wanted to be in the Army. And so I was an ROTC. I was a green pickle. And so, because our uniforms are green. Yeah. And so I had ROTC up the first 3 years through my junior year, ranked all the way up as high as I could. And which is kind of fun looking back now, because I could see some of my leadership, I think, came from that when I was in high school. But because I have Crohn's, I couldn't go into the military, and they wouldn't accept me. And so what I had built up the first 3 years of my high school, banking on I'm going to graduate and go straight into the Army, I couldn't do that.
Wow.
And so it was, and I was like, all right, well, now what? And I knew that I had felt called into ministry, but I also kind of like, well, maybe I could do ministry in the military. It's kind of this idea, yeah. And so kind of still wrestling with that on the inside, and that changed. And so something I want our young adults or our graduates to know is, your plans might change. What you're in high school, what you're planning for, what you're hoping for, that might change.
Well, I think that's gold, because the last 4 years, 3.5 years have been a season of change. 3 years have been a season of change. All of us can go, what we saw at the end of 2019, the world looks remarkably different.
Yep.
Now we're back into some new rhythms again now, but for 3 years, everything changed.
Yeah.
And it was like, I don't know what, if I had held on to my plans, I would have quit.
Right.
I think that we had graduates not graduate the way they thought they would. We had colleges. This generation we're talking to right now, that you're talking to, has experienced that as we speak.
Oh, for sure. Your plans, your dreams are going to change. But here's the thing. God never changes. He's the same.
Yeah.
And so what is your foundation on?
Yeah.
Is your foundation on what if your foundation's on playing professional sports and that falls apart, your life, you feel like your life is crumbling around you.
Yeah.
But if you know your foundation is on God, I'm just going to play professional sports. If that's changed, my foundation's the same.
Yeah.
I'm just going to have to look for another avenue.
Yeah. You put in here too, you said college isn't for everyone.
Yeah.
Unpack that for me, because I have strong opinions about that.
Yeah, I really do. I don't have a college degree. I went to college and played a lot of ping pong. And so I don't have a college degree. And I went to YouTube community college is what I call it. That's everything I know is YouTube. I don't think college is for everyone. I think college is for some people, but I think that you don't feel like you have to graduate and go to a college. I had a conversation with a graduate 2 years ago who felt the pressure to go to college because that's what everyone does. And I was like, if that's not like, it's okay if you want to get learn a skill set or go to a technical college, or a technical school, or get a certificate or something, some kind of education, but not necessarily a university or college. Because so many young adults are building up hundreds of thousands of dollars in student loans
And asking people to pay for it.
Yeah. And then they graduate and they still can't find a job, or they find a job and like, well, this isn't what I thought I was going to make, and now I have $200,000 in student loans. How am I going to pay that back? And it's just take time and really process what that looks like.
So I think that's important, because we're talking about a life of significance.
Yes.
Success tells you go to college, get a degree, get a job, make money, have a family, do this. We gotta have the end goal. What is God? I mean, again, this is at the core of everything we talk about here. We believe is a foundation is Scripture in the Bible and a relationship with God through His Son Jesus. So here's the thing: what is God calling me to do to have a life of significance? Then determine my route to get there. So let's give an example where I think college is necessary. Oh, I want to be a doctor. I want to be in the medical field.
Please go to college.
Please, yes. I don't want you cutting my leg open without that, right?
Yeah.
I don't want you prescribing medicine. So go to college if you want to be a nurse. If you feel that, look, don't be a nurse because your mom was a nurse and your grandma was a nurse and all that. Like if you feel like pray about it, seek it out and figure out, okay, I feel like my best gift set and my calling is to partner with God to help people, and that is in the field of nursing. That's the life of significance. But then the why is important, okay? But if you want to be an accountant, I mean, there's maybe a different road. If you want to own your own business, there's definitely a different road. You do not need a 4-year degree to own your own business. We can have that conversation in 20 minutes. And you just, sometimes you can spend, if you're going to spend $100,000 on education to have a business degree to own your own business, let's risk that $100,000 somewhere else and see if we can't make money with it. There's a lot of conversations there. So like my son he's in college right now. He's enrolled in dual enrollment because he can, because there's some general things that go toward his high school and his college, and then we'll decide. I mean, he'll probably graduate with a 2-year degree at 18 years old. I don't know what we're gonna do after that. Kind of depends on where he's at, what his calling is, and if we're gonna specialize. Obviously, I think there's some things he can learn, whether it's in college or not, that he needs to educate himself with, financial stuff, all that jazz. But colleges aren't doing that anyway. So I just would say, more often than not, I'm of the opinion college is not the best route.
Yeah.
So
even speaking specifically to ministry, and I know not everybody that listens is called into ministry, but I know some pastors that have a 4-year college degree in ministry. Not great pastors, not great leaders.
Nope.
I know
you spend 4 years here at our church, on staff at our church, and spend 2 days a week, 3 days a week in the office and get a job the other days, you're going to be more equipped for ministry than if you go to college.
Absolutely.
100%. Now, there's going to be some online things we're going to require you to do to learn.
Yeah.
But you're going to be well more equipped. And there's many churches in America like that.
Yeah. There are. So the last one is this. The last idea is this is specifically to those who are believers, but stay connected to a local church. Yeah. Stay connected to a local church. I believe every fiber of my being that we were created for community. We were created. So I want you to be intentional. Since you are created for community, be intentional with that community. Be intentional with the community that you surround yourself with. Because I've said this to our students before. You are the average of your 5 closest friends.
Yeah. Well, and I think attending is not connected. Showing up at rolling in the parking lot, getting your coffee, and going in and leaving. That's not connected. Like, where are you? Where are you in community? That's the key. And I would even say serving. And the biggest thing that stands out to me is there's a lot of young adults, and high schoolers especially, who graduate, go to college, and they have good intentions. But there's the graveyard of good intentions.
Oh, yeah.
And so intentions don't always yield actions. And so that's what we're looking for. We're looking for actions. We're looking for you to actually plug in and make a difference. Because listen, whatever season of life you're in, here's what I see oftentimes. And I think this is a great way to end. 25, 26, 27 people get married. Then they have a baby. Then they come back to church. But here's the problem. Because I want my kids in church. But they don't really want their kids in church because it's in the auditorium with their kids.
Yeah.
Because they don't really know. I don't know if I can trust this because you haven't been here for 5 years. But if you've been making a difference in this church, you would, like, I think of little Cohen who's in the office 2 days a week or 1 day a week on Wednesdays, and he brightens up the office. That kid has more love and community.
Yeah.
He's our kids director's little boy, and she's getting ready to have another one. But like, I'm just telling you, man, I wouldn't change that for nothing for my kid. But the reason that kid has that much love is because his parents were heavily involved when the kid was born. And it wasn't like they had to come back, oh, I want to connect. I can think of name after name after name. So if you're listening to this podcast, don't send me hate mail. I'm not going to respond to it, and I don't want you to be mad at me. But I don't know. We had a kid, and we don't want our kid. We don't know if we can put our kid in nursery, and we don't know. We're just trying to find a church where, grow the frick up and be a parent. Grow up.
Yeah.
And like, I'm not saying you got to put your kid in nursery. I think you should, so you can focus. But I'm talking about just being connected to your church. And it's so hard because we've been out for so long, and we were out during COVID, and we didn't go. I'm like, oh my God, this is why you should have stayed connected, and you didn't. Now suck it up, Buttercup, and do the right thing.
Yeah, and I'm really excited for the community that my 8-month-old is going to be brought up into.
I said that
and
recently.
So that's something I'm looking forward to as she continues to grow. But even for our high school graduates, so many of them will move away. They'll go off to college, and they're like, I'll stay connected, and then they don't do the hard work of trying to find a local church. We expect that a church will just kind of fall in our lap. But sometimes you've got to do some work, or you just got to, or even prep before. Come to me, come to your small group leader, and say, "Hey, like I'm moving to Alabama, or I'm going to Clemson. Are you connected with any pastors over there? Do you know any churches?"
And here's
over
another
there?
thing I would say: don't go to a college you don't know you have a church at.
There you go.
Let the Christ-centered home conversation. I'm not going to a college till I scout out the churches in there and find a home church, and then I'll decide on my college. What if we went at it from that countercultural perspective?
Change everything.
Maybe we do college online and connect with our home church. Or go to a local community college and not spend
several
$40,000.
$100,000. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're just paying for experience, and then in that experience, you get caught up in the wrong.
You're paying most college
You grow
students.
bad habits. You get caught up with the wrong community.
Most college students are paying for a bag of regrets. I'm just being honest. I mean, I don't have a ton of regrets. I went to a Bible college that had very strict rules, but there's some things I'm like, that was stupid.
I won a ping pong tournament, so I don't regret that.
Is that the only thing you ever want in life? So, Hey, this is good stuff. So, hey, if this is helpful to you, or if you know a college student or young adult, somebody graduating from high school, just send this to them and maybe make a comment on what stood out to you. Like and share us on all platforms. Thank you for all your support and all the kind words. And leave us a review. And we'll see you guys next time on the Good Life Podcast.